If you ever feel out of control around food, you're not alone, and you're in the right place to learn practical, no-nonsense information about why you binge and how to stop. Binge eating does not mean that something is wrong with you. It's a natural but primitive brain response that you can correct. If you're ready for change, sign up for the Brain Over Binge self-paced online course for less than $20 per month. And if you feel you need personalized support, we also offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching. To learn more, go to brainoverbinge.com/subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the show. This is the Brain Over Binge podcast, where we share a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. I'm your host, Kathryn Hansen. I'm the author of 2 books, Brain Over Binge and the Brain Over Binge Recovery Guide, which both offer an alternative approach to ending binge eating. And it's this approach that we're sharing with you in this podcast. And I'm so glad to be here today with Cookie Rosenblum, who is a master coach and author.
Thank you, Kathryn. I'm happy to be here with you and everybody listening. And we're truly happy that you're back, because we know that if you're back, you're seeking an answer. And that means, most importantly, that you have not given up. So let's dive into what we have to offer you today.
Thanks, Cookie. And the Brain Over Binge approach that we're sharing some key concepts here in this podcast is based around 2 recovery goals. Recovery goal 1 is to dismiss binge urges, and recovery goal 2 is to eat adequately. In the past 5 episodes, we've explained recovery goal 1 in detail. That's dismissing urges. And we hope that if you've listened to these episodes, the past 5 episodes, that you're having some success in dismissing urges using the 5 components that we taught you. If you're not having as much success as you'd like right now, we don't want you to be discouraged. We know that no one recovers in exactly the same way or on exactly the same timeline. For some people, the ideas we've shared are extremely effective right away, and change can be very quick for some people. But that's not everyone. For others, it takes more time, and it takes more practice, and it takes more repetition, and really taking these ideas and having your own insights about them. It often takes some troubleshooting as well, and that's what we're going to help you do in this episode and also in the next 2 episodes. There are several things that can keep people stuck and make dismissing urges difficult. One of the main things is restrictive dieting. And I think actually this might be the number 1 issue that keeps people in a pattern of acting on binge urges and feeling unable to dismiss them. If you're restricting food and not eating adequately, the body is going to remain in what I call survival mode, where the lower brain is trying to protect you from self-imposed starvation by encouraging you to eat as much as possible. And when you're in this state, in this survival-oriented state, the urges to binge are going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to dismiss. So this is where the second recovery goal becomes very, very important, and that second goal is to eat adequately. Eating adequately is paramount to make sure you have the ability to dismiss the urges, and that the urges will go away if you stop acting on them. So in this episode, we're going to talk more about eating adequately.
If you've listened to these podcasts from us so far, and you feel like you're just not able to dismiss the urges, even if you're trying to follow all the steps, then it's possible that making sure you're eating enough could be the turning point for you that could really help. Eating adequately in itself, it's not really a cure because the habit is so strong. You'll still have to use everything you've learned so far about dismissing the urges that will inevitably come up, but eating enough is what's going to support your efforts and make it easier. Now, a lot of people will say to us, okay, what does eating adequately mean? How should I do it? We know that there are so many different ways to nourish your body and to eat that all work for different people. And because it's so individual, we're not right at this moment going to recommend a specific way of eating. We do go more deeply into this in our groups and in our work with people who want to get rid of that urge to binge. And we help guide you to figure out what an adequate way of eating is. And it doesn't have to be complicated. You can eat in a way that feels right for you. But the big takeaway is we really strongly discourage you from restrictive dieting. Many people think they can kind of trick the system, and what they're really trying to do is trick their lower brain. And even if you feel that you have extra weight that you wish you didn't have and you'd like to lose it, now is not the time to say to yourself, I'm going to dismiss the urges and I'm still not going to eat a lot so I can lose the extra weight. It's really close to impossible to do both at the same time. So we strongly, strongly discourage you from restricting your food. And what we mean by restricting is not giving yourself enough food so that you are walking around physically hungry. If you're physically hungry, we want you to eat. So think about what you've been doing up to this point, and have you been restricting?
Yeah, and the main message is that you can't expect to dismiss these binge urges if you're walking around hungry and if you're trying to basically starve yourself to lose weight. Actually, giving up dieting, although like Cookie said, it's not a cure, it can actually reduce binge urges significantly in some people. The basics of eating adequately aren't complicated at all. You simply need to eat enough. And I'll also add that you need to eat enough decent quality food as well, so you're getting just the basics of what you need nutritionally. Your eating does not have to be perfect, and we really want to emphasize this because it's very important. It does not have to be all organic, all healthy, the exact perfect amount, or the exact ratio of proteins to fats to carbohydrates. We're just suggesting that you look at adequate eating in terms of getting the basic quantity of food that you need and also some basic quality food to make sure you're not in a calorie deficit or a significant nutritional deficit. Another way to describe eating adequately is just to make sure you aren't ignoring your body and ignoring hunger signals, and to make sure you aren't just slashing calories to try to lose weight. This is really a losing battle, and it makes dismissing urges basically impossible.
Yeah, and what I want to add to that, Kathryn, is that if in the past, to kind of compensate for having a binge, if you've been a pretty strong restrictor of what you eat afterwards, you may be very used to not even being in touch with whether you're hungry or not. You're so used to ignoring the hunger so that you could restrict, so you could get back to where you were. And that's exactly not what we want you to do. So eating adequately may feel different for you than what you've been doing. And we want to give you just some general helpful tips on getting started. Now, if you feel well connected to your hunger and fullness at this point, and you truly can tell when you should eat based on your body signals, then please let that be your guide. Natural eaters do not generally weigh or measure or count anything. They generally use hunger and fullness to tell when to eat and when to stop eating. But the main point is that you're just not walking around hungry. You respond to your body's signals in a way that feels good to you. Eventually, you want to be able to read those signals, and they're very individual, as we said. And what we mean by this is I have a hunger scale that I use that is in my book in the show notes. And when we say fullness, what we mean is lightly satisfied, not stuffed and bloated and uncomfortable. It may take time to uncover this signal. When we say hungry, we don't mean starving. We mean lightly hungry, like it would feel really good to eat right now, not desperate and panicky. So what you will eventually learn, no matter what method you choose to feed yourself adequately, the ultimate goal is to be able to check in with yourself periodically during the day and just kind of assess how your body's feeling, just like you would check your car's gas gauge to see if you needed to stop for a fill-up of gas. and the signals are subjective. That's why we could describe them to you, but you need to figure out how they feel in your own body. I want you to trust that you were born with these signals. When you were a little baby, you cried when you were hungry. Your body gave a message to your brain that you were empty and you needed food. And those signals are built into your brain and your body for survival, right? We know that we're hungry so we can eat and keep on living. But from years of not responding to your body, that signal for hunger and fullness get pretty dimmed because we've been ignoring them. So that's why we suggest, Kathryn actually has in her recovery guidebook 4 different eating strategies that we talk about in more detail in smaller groups or personal one-on-one coaching. But you will eventually learn that whether you use numbers to measure how hungry you are or whether you just give them names, that's how you will know when to start eating and when to stop, from a little bit hungry to a little bit full, not from starving to stuffed.
Thanks, Cookie. That's such a helpful description of hunger and fullness. And I think it's the eventual goal for everyone recovering from binge eating and just everyone out there in the world eating to use hunger and fullness as their guides. And it's definitely a strategy that many people who are trying to recover can start using right now, because not everyone is out of touch with hunger and fullness. You might be surprised that you actually have a strong connection to these natural signals. So start using them now if you feel like you can. If, on the other hand, like Cookie mentioned, you might feel out of touch with these signals right now. At this point in time, you might not feel like you have a good sense of when you're hungry or when you're satisfied. And this is very common because you have ignored these signals and you have binged and gone way beyond fullness, that you might have just temporarily lost touch. And these signals are going to return, but if they aren't present now, some structure may be necessary to get you back on track with eating normally. And like Cookie mentioned, there are 4 strategies we talk about, and there are lots of different ways you can add structure to your meals when you need it and where you need it. And structure means simply giving yourself some basic guidelines, not strict rules, but just basic guidelines for eating adequately. Some people use specific meal plans on a temporary basis until appetite regulates. Like Cookie mentioned, we aren't going to give you specific recommendations for exactly how to eat, but know that you can create a plan that feels right for you, either with the help of a nutritionist or based on your own knowledge about eating. And as you use that plan and as you make sure you're nourished day after day, then your hunger signals will return and you'll be able to eventually eat in a more natural way.
In our courses and in our individual work, Kathryn and I find that sometimes people resist this information to eat enough because they want to lose weight. So they think they can be the exception. You may be thinking that right now. They think they can just continue restrictive dieting and still somehow not binge. But from what we've seen, this simply does not work, and it leads to more binge eating. And furthermore, that yo-yo cycle of dieting and binge eating will eventually lead for more weight gain in the long run. So please be honest with yourself, and please don't think that you can trick your body or your brain. It just simply does not work.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important for people to see and for you to see that it can be really transformational when you finally realize that restrictive dieting is not compatible with quitting binge eating. But not only that, it's not compatible or effective for weight loss as well. It's just a faulty strategy. Calorie deficits serve to slow metabolism because your body adapts to the food restriction and starts slowing down and burning fewer calories to conserve. So it just is not effective. It's not a long-term tool for reaching or maintaining a healthy weight. And it's certainly very harmful to those who are trying to quit binge eating.
Definitely. And remember that when we say give up dieting and restriction, then we don't mean going to the other extreme of unhealthy indulgence. You could still eat well. You could still focus on health and fitness. And when you're in tune with the signals from your body can find its own natural healthy weight. So choosing to eat well to nourish your body is not restriction, but nor does it mean that you have black and white thinking and say, okay, well, if I'm not going to restrict, then whatever, I'll just eat whatever I want, whenever I want it, even if I'm not hungry. Please don't think that that's what we mean.
That's right. That's not the intention of eating adequately, to just go to the other end. And we want you to eat in a way that just feels good to you and doesn't feel like you are having to follow strict, rigid rules. Even if you're trying to eat well, sometimes people take that to an extreme and it becomes an obsession. And that's really when sort of a red flag goes up. And feeling good in your body and eating well should feel like a choice. It shouldn't feel like something you're trapped into doing and you feel like you've failed if you ate anything less than healthy. And I just want to add one important point before we wrap up today's show, and that is, if you've been restricting calories and eating a lot less than your body needs, then you need to increase your calories very gradually. There's actually some medical risk in increasing your calories too fast. So you want to do this gradually. We just want to make you aware of this. You don't want to go from eating a lot less than your body needs to suddenly as much as your body needs, in one day. So we want you to get any sort of medical or nutritional help when necessary in regulating your eating habits. Some people have a lot more work to do in this area than others. Other people just need to start eating a little more. Other people have really been severely restricting, and this is when we want to let you know that we are not nutritionists or doctors, and what we've talked about in this show and any of our shows doesn't take the place of any professional nutritional advice. So the purpose of today's episode was to encourage you to eat enough, but we want you to make sure you get the help you need in doing that. And thanks so much for listening today. That wraps up this episode. And next time we'll talk more about issues that might be holding you back from dismissing urges in addition to what we've talked about here, so that you can really gain momentum in recovery. If you haven't already done so, check out the show notes to see how you can learn more about Cookie and myself and to get our free ebooks as well.
Yes, just go to the show notes and you'll find links to reach either one of us and to learn about different ways that we might be able to help you even further than the podcast. My book is available to you in downloadable form, and it's, of course, a gift from me to you. And the book is called Clearing Your Path to Permanent Weight Loss. But it's not only for weight loss. It really deals with all different types of eating issues to help you look at why you failed in the past and what you might want to do differently in your approach now, so you don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. But once again, we're so glad you're here. We're so glad you have not given up. And we feel so confident and excited for you that this approach will be different, will be life-changing, literally. I guess I can say that because I didn't create it. Kathryn did. And I'm just so excited to be connected with this and sharing it with people.
Thanks so much, Cookie. And we hope you can join us again next time. For now, this is Kathryn and Cookie reminding you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the hosts of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey. Need more help? You can find all of our current and upcoming options for support at brainoverbinge.com.